Oh yeah.
Very warm welcome to be here with us.
Yeah.
The main purpose of inspiring students on the
Yeah.
actually we have
कोई
getting together people
बात
from all over the world
कोई बात नहीं.
and the wonderful and great experience, innovative and out of the box idea and vision for the textile industry that is needed to its better evolution. Today, at the Inspiring Day Conference, there is a new celebrate that called TAXtalks. This measurement is an effort to provide a platform to the key stakeholders and
डिवाइस का चैनल 1 है.
of the textile industry together under one roof and discuss business opportunities, sustainable solutions, and innovative ideas for the development of the textile industry. As you all know, part of the international is an export of
क्या बोला आपने?
and this is a mission to make the US better, the most preferred
जी लाइव हो गया.
all the supply chain. And we have experience of more than 50 years to promote the US market. And we have reached more than 50 countries in the globe and 20 offices everywhere in the world. There are things that we work with the farmers, dealers, porters, shippers, dealers, dyes, factories,
retailers, and even with the consumers, textile associations, and also work with USDA to facilitate the use of cotton. This year at ITMA, Milan, CCI launched an essential new benchmarking tool for the spinning mills known as Cotton USA Mills Performance Index. And that allows the mills to evaluate their performance and definitely show the positive impact of sustainable cotton. So we have our booth over there. I encourage you to kindly, whenever there is a time, go and meet our expert, Mr. Alain Matthew. He is here today. He can explain you the more features of this MPI. Moving forward, I would like to extend very warm welcome to our guests who has traveled all the way long to Pakistan to attend the Inspiring Change Conference. Mr. Steve Dyer, who is the president of Cotton Council International, Mr. William Kimball, who is the CEO of Cotton Incorporated, Mr. William Bittendorf, who is the regional director for CCI, Mr. Robin Pigo, the Cotton Global Trading Manager for Cargill, Sir Wayne Bosman, President, Carolina Cotton Growers, Daniel Wong, who is the Manager for Asia Supply Chain for Cotton Incorporated, Mr. Freddie Dufay, who is the Head of Corporate Affairs, Moditan UK, and Mr. Josh Biss, who is the Business Development Manager for Moditan. And also today we have Mr. Chris Rittix, who is the FAS Counselor, sitting here from Islamabad Embassy with us. Your effort and your encouragement for this cause are highly commendable. Thank you very much for visiting us in Pakistan. Also, we will have a special guest today, close to the evening, US Consulate, who will join us during the conference and the dinner. Christine Hawkins, she is the CG of US Consulate in Lahore. As a famous author said, the power of gathering is astounding. For those who learn and act together have already taken the step towards success. So thank you all for joining us and taking this step with us. Pakistan is facing challenging situation at the moment. And Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. This is the reason CCI has been the proud partner of TAXtalks International for bringing us all together here at this place. And I hope that we might team up to do much for the servicing of the textile sector and our beloved country. Once again, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who has joined us today at Inspiring Change Conference. Last but not the least, the TAXtalks International team who had organized such a wonderful event. Now I would like to invite Mr. Steve Russell, who is the CCI president, and come here at the stage and share a few words from your side. Thank you.
Thanks, Mazar. Yeah, I remember last year when we came to the TAXtalks conference. It was the first time myself that I'd ever been here, and it was impressive at what had been put together. I didn't realize what it all encompassed, but really got to meet some interesting folks, hear some really some good information about the industry, and just really get a better experience of what TAXtalks provide. So I'm glad to be invited back, and behalf of my colleagues, we're honored to be here. I think we've got some pretty interesting presentations to show to you guys today. I'll say that when we come to these meetings and our CCI delegations in Pakistan, we really learn a lot from you guys. We can read the emails, we can read the WhatsApps, but when you really sit down and experience what the industry is going through at this particular point in time, it just makes you realize where we are, helps us better prepare for what we can do as your partners. So really appreciate everybody's comments and being so sincere and open with us. Today I'd really like to just welcome everyone here. I want to talk just a second about the Cotton Trust Protocol, and why we think it's so important, and why we think you guys should please join us in the proposal. So going forward, so just looking at the Pakistan cotton production, I think about a week, 2 weeks before we came here, we were alerted of the pest attack, and probably some high speculation on whether the production will be as large as it is. So we're always looking at that. We've heard some pretty wide ranges, but I think that's probably a challenge number today. Consumption wise, we've probably heard the same thing. We've heard figures as low as 12.5 million to 13 million bales that'll be consumed. We just need one spark of demand, and that can all change pretty quick. I think we're all waiting on those phone calls, so hopefully that'll take shape. Cotton imports here, I think we all know where we are, what the U.S. has already committed, what we've done last year. We want to see that blue line increase for the U.S. cotton imports. So, depending on the local crop, we're here for you guys. We want to do more business. We'll see where the local crop ends up. Again, like I was saying, I want to talk a little bit about Cotton Trust Protocol. I think that the U.S. has put a lot of effort into this initiative. I was on the discovery committee and the board of Cotton Trust Protocol, and really we think we've put something together that's a fantastic sustainability initiative that we would really like those folks to support. I know collectively the three of us, between Wayne and Robin and I, our companies support the initiative. We're really trying to drive it forward internally in the U.S., trying to get our farmers as part of it. Most everybody's signing up, but the uptake has been quicker on your side than it has on our side. So we're pushing that initiative forward. Will's going to talk about this a little bit, but we've gotten a lot of international bodies that have recognized the Cotton Trust Protocol as their standard. It's not easy to get some of these European guys to sign on to new initiatives. But Cotton Trust Protocol is fairly young as far as sustainability initiatives, so we're happy to have these guys as part of it. Got 1,800 mill and manufacturers signed up across the countries that you see in front of you here. We just got Macy's, I think, last week to sign up, which is a big one. CCI is continuing to work on new brands and retailers to be part of this every single day, and it's with warm reception, I will say. And this is also an impressive statistic. You got 115, actually somebody told me Mazar signed up 3 more this week. So 118 members here with Cotton Trust Protocol. And we're happy with that. Want to see everybody continue to support it. Got a few slides here, just some of the logos of the mills and manufacturers that are on this. I would just encourage you guys, if you're not part of the protocol, come see us, talk to us, speak to the local representatives, but it's a worthwhile initiative. Again, we've done a lot of work on it, and we think that the Cotton Trust Protocol has a lot of legs as far as the long-term view. So these are the folks that are on it. Again, if you don't see your name, please reach out to us. So with that, I'd like to say thanks again. Pleasure to be here. And like I said, my colleagues have some really interesting remarks for you guys. So thanks again. Appreciate it.
I would like to call upon stage Mr. William Beckendorf to present CCI updates on the key sustainability issues.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be back in Pakistan, especially it's great to be back in beautiful Lahore. Thank you very much for coming today, and thank you again to TAXtalks for organizing today's conference. My presentation is going to be a little different from what you may have seen me present in the past. I will be talking with you about 3 words that you know, but yet I think we may not fully appreciate. And those words are sustainability, traceability, and circularity. Now, before you decide to go get a cup of coffee, bear with me. It's a brief presentation. And as I said, there's some pretty good information about these. First, sustainability. Why is it important? It's important because this market is booming globally, and you need to be part of that. The green technology and sustainability market has been growing on, I guess, an average of about 20%. And experts say that by 2029, it's going to hit a market value of $51 billion US. The consulting market associated with green technology and sustainability is also growing. Its growth rate is about 17%, and it should hit, consulting alone, a value of about 16 billion globally. And then finally, Bloomberg. We all know Bloomberg. They predict that the investment in green technology and sustainability will reach up to $37.8 trillion by the end of this year alone. So this is a huge industry. It's not just chatter. It's not just your brands or retailers, your customers pushing you to do more things. It's real, and it's here to stay. And it will make the difference between the winners and the losers, the buyers and the suppliers to the brands around the world. You need to be part of it. And US Cotton is a great key to get you started on that journey. And the reason I say that is, again, due to our sustainability program, which we call the US Cotton Trust Protocol. This program starts with the cotton farmers in the United States. Every single bale of cotton that's grown in America has been tested and graded and has a unique identification number. And that will follow the supply chain all the way to the garment or the home textile at the retail shelf. We've partnered with technology in order to be able to track the blockchain, track the supply chain. I'll tell you more about that in a minute, but that combination of sustainability and transparency is what brands and retailers need today, and it's what can help you have a competitive advantage to earn that trust and to gain that business. The protocol measures 6 key metrics. Those are water use, land use, the increase in soil carbon, the decrease in greenhouse gas emissions, energy use, and soil conservation. With the cotton producers in America, everyone has the environmental footprint. And what we want to do is to make that footprint smaller and smaller as time goes on. It's all about continuous improvement. And as Steve mentioned, this program has already been accepted by all the leading sustainability organizations in the major markets. The most important of these, though, that I want to highlight is the ISEAL organization. This is the company that certifies all the sustainability companies. And if you have the ISEAL accreditation, then it's about the strongest mark of accreditation that you could have. All of these programs, they ladder up to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And as you know from watching the news, the UN is meeting this week, and climate change, sustainability is a key topic that they're discussing. Our mills and manufacturers are growing incredibly. In the brief time that this program has been in existence, we've already exceeded 1,800 members, and they come from 30 different countries. As Steve mentioned, in Pakistan, you guys have a great representation. We have 118 members, but that's open to the entire supply chain. So if you're a yarn manufacturer, fabric manufacturer, garment maker, home textile maker, you're welcome to join the program as well. And then, of course, the brands and retailers. These are leading global brands that have all joined this program. They like it, they endorse it, and they are looking for suppliers who can provide them with U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol materials. They are changing their supply chains, and you have the opportunity to be part of that if you become a member. The second important aspect is traceability. Now, why is traceability important? The reason is because your customers, the brands and the retailers, are basically having to defend themselves. They're being accused of greenwashing, and that means saying that they're sustainable when they may not be sustainable. And the key differentiation here is that there's a difference between doing and saying, and now due to the international rules and regulations, especially what's happening in the States and will soon be adopted by the EU, they say, with regard to Xinjiang province in China with the Uyghur Forced Labor Protection Act, products made with components from China are being banned from being imported into the United States. We'll talk more about that in a second. And then the digitization of the supply chain. No longer is our supply chain based on documents and certifications alone. It's all being digitized, and that's happening more and more every single day. This slide comes from the website of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And if you Google U.S. Customs and Border Protection, you'll see this these pages. The first one on the left shows the value of goods that have been detained by the American authorities each quarter. And then the one on the right shows which countries those products are coming from. I don't know if you can see, but the blue bar, the tall blue bar represents products from China. The gold bar represents products from Vietnam. The others are Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and other countries. Luckily, Pakistan is not there. And this is where you do not want to appear. When we look at the supply chains, it's important to understand how, the flow. I think most of us know this, but basically on the left-hand side, you have the bale of cotton, that single node. And then that gets transformed to yarn, fabric, garments, and then eventually the product that's being sold on the shelf. The traditional method of confirming your supply chain, the traceability, is to take the garment and then go backwards. What garment factory made it? Where did they get the fabric from? Where did the yarn come from, etc. That system, as we learned just recently, less than 2 years ago, I think, in terms of what happened in India with the organic cotton certifications that were exposed as being fraudulent, that traditional model no longer works. We have to follow the cotton through the supply chain, and that's what the protocol does. With us and our permanent bale identification tags on every single bale of cotton, we can follow the cotton through the supply chain, through the yarn, the fabric, and the garment stages, so that the brand or the retailer will know for sure at the end of the day that their products are verifiable and really true to what they are claimed to be. This shows an example of an order that's being tracked. Let's just go forward real quick. In the middle here, you see the 7,500. That represents 7,500 pairs of jeans in this example. with our technology partner, which is Textile Genesis, based out of Hong Kong. That system will analyze the cotton components in those 7,500 pairs of jeans. They'll convert them into a number of kilos, which is the 9,000 in the other red box at the top. And then by doing the analysis, and this is an analysis, the results of the analysis on item by item, the brand or the retailer will be able to get a user-friendly printed report that shows them by using the sustainable cotton in this order, they were able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by X, reduce land use by Y, water use by Z, etc. These metrics are exactly what the brands and the retailers want to add to their annual marketing, to their annual reports in order to market their products and say what a good job they're doing. The final term is circularity. This is being batted around a lot. There are, I think, different definitions for this. But the reason why it's important is because our industry really is beginning to have a really bad reputation. They say that we are responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions and 20% of water wastage. And this is not a good image to have. We need to clean this up, and we need to take steps in order to show the world that this industry is not as bad as they say. Circularity means basically closing the loop and not wasting the products or the remnants of our processing. So if we can minimize our waste and reuse that waste in any kind of way, then that closes the loop and makes our industry more circular. And it's a solution for you to be more sustainable. Now, depending on where you are in the supply chain, you're going to have a different strategy. Our farmers have to use different strategies. Yarn manufacturer will use something that's totally different from a garment manufacturer. So depending on who you are, you'll have your own strategy in order to minimize your waste. This slide shows you survey results that we did with retailers to ask them about the importance of cotton and how important it is to their business. You can see on the left-hand side, the blue and the gold bar combined, those represent about 93% of the responses, but it shows that the majority of the brands and retailers around the world rely on cotton for the majority of their sales. And then if you look at this first one on the left, do they have a strategy for circularity in their business? 74% say yes. So that's a lot. And if you don't have a circular strategy of your own to tell your customers, yes, if you buy from me, it fits within your own strategy, you're going to lose out. More importantly, how important is cotton to that strategy? 85% of the respondents say that cotton is very important to that strategy. And who has these strategies? On the left, you can see with the blue section, that's the UK. So British brands and retailers are really leading the charge in the circularity arena, but it's closely followed by the EU as well as the United States. Most of those brands are mass market brands. They're not the luxury. On the right-hand side, the luxury segment represents only about 25% of that, but the majority of the basic brands need circularity. And some of the programs that they're already involved with include the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, of course, Better Cotton, WRAP, and the protocol. That bar for the protocol is small today, but I guarantee you next year it's going to be much, much higher. So what does it all mean to us? It means that there's going to be a big need to recycle more materials in your manufacturing. And it could include up to 10% of that because the market is moving in that direction. And 10% of the global cotton market is a huge amount. And what we want to just reassure you with is just to say that the U.S. cotton industry is here to be your partner. We want to partner with you. And even if maybe we're not the right partner for you, you need to have sustainability, traceability, and circularity in your corporate strategies. because whether we like it or not, it's here and it's not going anywhere. It'll be here to stay. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. And I'll hand it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, William. Now I would like to ask my audience if they have any questions from William. We can have a quick question answer session. Anyone, everyone? Please. Just mic. You can come here.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, Mr. William. I am Mr. Faisal from Interloop Limited.
Yes, sir.
My question is, how we can ensure the quality of recycled cotton? Is there any process have been invented other than the mechanical recycling of cotton?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having, could you take the echo off that? I'm having difficulty. Could you repeat the question, please? I couldn't hear because of the echo.
My question is relevant to the circularity.
Do what?
He's changing the mic.
Okay.
My question is relevant to the circularity of textile materials,
Yes,
especially for cotton.
yes.
What have we defined any process to get a quality recycled cotton from the garments?
Yes. So I think your question, tell me if I'm correct in understanding. Is there a way to ensure the quality of the recycled material that goes back into the yarn?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a very tough one. This summer, we attended ITMA, and circularity was a huge theme that you saw at a lot of the booths there. And in speaking with some of the textile engineers, they were complaining because they said, do you know what this recycled material actually does? And one gentleman referred to it as mouse hair. It's so short. It's you know, you can't really twist it and it can't really be a major component of the yarn. And they believe that you can only, I think, introduce maybe about 15% maximum. So in terms of ensuring the quality, I don't have an answer for you there. I mean, I know that in terms of cellulose, there's the product Renew Cell that basically turns it into a type of a rayon fabric. Maybe you could use that, but if you want to use only cotton, right now, I'm not familiar with that. Maybe Mr. Kimbrell will have some information for you. He'll be speaking. He's from Cotton Incorporated. They do a lot of research and development. He may have some information for you, but I'm sorry, I don't.
So let's move forward to the next question, please.
Hi, thank you for giving this opportunity. My name is Rizwan. I come from the polyester fiber background, so I'm just trying to ask what we're doing there. Do you have a physical tracer in your cotton that can be traced all the way to the garment? Or is it going to be through blockchain and then testing in the lab? Because you know there are tracers available that can be detected in the garment store as well.
Yes, sir. The protocol does not use a trace element. It's all relying upon a combination of our blockchain technology as well as verification. So we have two technology partners in this. One is Textile Genesis for blockchain, and the second is Ortane, which verifies the origin of the cotton fiber. But we do not have a trace element as part of the protocol.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, William. Thank you so much. So once again, everyone, thank you so much for your presence and making this happen again. So now it's time to move forward to a very interesting discussion. And for that, we have the ever-changing dynamics of the cotton situation. And for this, I would like to call on stage Mr. Robin Edward Piggle, Global Manager, Cargill Cotton USA. Please give him a very big hand.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? I operate the clicker. I cannot move the Here you go. All right, here we go. So I will try to keep it short so that we can have some questions, because obviously I can talk my head off, and what is important is what is relevant to you. And the first one is pretty general, and I don't think to talk about it too much, but what are the key elements that are very important, in the current environment? Obviously, inflation is one, and I think would say in the environment of Pakistan, the interest rate is extremely important. If you want to carry any cotton in your operations or any inventory for that matter, the cost of capital has become extremely important. That's one element. The second one that I can think of in your environment would be the Forex, and especially whether you guys could be threatened by a second devaluation and how that could impact your business. So obviously it depends on what kind of situation you're in, whether you operate only domestically, whether you export your products, or I would say even whether you're integrated or not. The other elements are just elements which are pretty global around, but I think it's especially here in the environment of Pakistan, sorry, we really have to focus on aspects of cost of capital and potential devaluation of the currency. That's the US inflation. So obviously it's a very different situation, and it's a very different type of economy as the one in Pakistan. But what you can see here is that the apparel inflation is not really what it's all about. I mean, in the US, you have the food and you have the overall, I would say, which is around 3.7% right now on the inflation, which is a very small number compared to what we can have in a country like Pakistan. But that does destabilize or create a lot of instability in the economy in the US, even though it's a pretty small number compared to what we have here. The consumer price index, I think that's a very interesting one in the sense that you have a general trend for the apparel, and it's not I would say the consumer price index for apparel are not, really tremendous. And in the US, what is very important is the change of energy and cost of gasoline, for example, right now. The US dollar index, you guys know better than I do about it. It's difficult to control. We're on the medium size compared to what we had as a peak, but I mean, we're pretty much on the high side. So the US dollar is pretty expensive. I think that one puts in perspective what it is for Pakistan, but what it is also for a country like Turkey, which is faced by the same, environment with the very high interest rates, but also potential devaluations, and they are affected by the same kind of systemic issues. There is no real solution to that. How to hedge your currency is one thing, which is not obvious. And obviously, when you're confronted with a high interest rate and a high cost of capital, is how do you ration and how do you rationalize your business so that you do not carry stocks or you have a very low inventory. All right, so let's get to that. So there are two slides here, and I had a lot of questions. I've been here since Monday, I think. I had a lot of questions from all of you. We were in Karachi before, and the questions here in Lahore are not different. About what is it with these demand, and what do I think about the demand, or what do you think about the demand? So there are two, you can look at two different types of statistics, and they tell you two different things. If you look at the retail clothing and clothing accessories, and looking at this graph where you have 2023, which is the light blue, compared to the previous year, which is in green in 22, for the same month, you can see that the consumption, or I would say the retail trade, is higher overall for this year compared to last year for the same corresponding months. And it's significantly different to the previous 3 years. So when you look at that, you're telling yourself, well, at the store, it's selling pretty well. This is only for the US. So therefore, demand is pretty good, right? But this demand is demand of the consumer. This is not the apparent demand that you guys can be confronted with, which is how much the retailer, how much the brand is ordering from me, how much the yarn producer is ordering from my spinning mill. When you look at it from that angle, you see that the imports into the US are not so much in a good shape. There are some ups and downs, but right now you have some downs compared to the previous year. So this is a different way to look at demand, is say, well, actually the imports into the US are pretty lousy. So therefore demand is not really good. If you look at it on the previous one, you see that at the store, the consumers are consuming and demand is, as high, if not higher in certain months than the previous year. So we are between this and between that, which is an okay situation, probably a little bit on the upside. But at the same time, when we look at it here, it's not okay at all. And I think we have a difficulty right now to really identify what the demand is. And I have a difficulty on that. We have some numbers, we make some numbers. I will present some numbers, which are the USDA numbers. We can talk about what I think about this demand. But in general, demand can be a little bit higher than the previous year, but it's not super vivid either. And I had some questions and say, okay, so when is that coming back? I don't know. I simply don't know. Every 3 months, we're saying that the demand is going to come in 3 months. And we've been saying that for the past year. And I think we can keep on saying that for a while, i.e. the demand is going to be coming back eventually, but I cannot tell you when. Overall, demand is likely to be a little bit higher than the previous year, but it's not going to be a big jump. And we're not back to the trend we had before. So that's the share of the US cotton, textile, and apparel imports. What we're talking about here is a redistribution of the supply chain away from China, which you have on the left side, to the other countries which you have next to the Chinese environment. So the exports from China have gone down over time from about 33% in 2018 to last year. That's interesting. To last year, 22%. And these 11 points of change have been replaced into other countries. You can see Pakistan, which is on the right-hand side, next to North America, from 8 to 11%. I believe that Pakistan can do better. And I think Pakistan will do better. The beneficiaries so far have been, I would say, India for 4 points, about 3 points in Bangladesh, Vietnam for about almost nothing. And we can talk about that. It may be linked as well to influence of China in this discussion. And then North America is a no change, and North America domestic, I would say, production of apparel is very limited. So what we have is an even distribution to a certain extent into the main producing countries, away from China into the other countries. And you don't have any big winner. It's all spread around. Okay, so world consumption, I was just touching about that. So last year it was 111 million barrels. This is the official number from the USDA. I believe it was a little bit smaller than that, probably around 110, maybe 109. And the number for this year would be a jump for about 5 million barrels from 111 to 116. So how do I know that? Actually, I don't know it. I read it in the newspapers because the USDA has produced this number. But what I believe is the number is going to be a little bit smaller than that. Between, I would say 114 would be more correct, coming from 110 last year. So progress of 4 million barrels. So this is a pretty small number. And if you are looking into the environment that has grown from, I would say 2011 to 2017, we had an organic growth of the consumption, which was a growth over these years for about 11 million barrels. And we had some sort of a trend showing up, and it started to derail as per 2018, and 19 was the low of the market at 104. So we have derailed from the trend of the growth, which went up and peaked 124 million barrels, and we really have a hard time to get back to that. And COVID is behind us, and I would say we have another year where we have a little progress, but it seems extremely difficult right now to be thinking of going back to numbers that were above 120 million barrels. So the world consumption is a little bit larger. I don't think it's 116. I think it's 1 million barrels to 2 million barrels lower, but it's a little bit larger than the previous year. Okay, any question on that? If there is, or we want to keep the question for the end? Okay. Okay, the world production. So in an environment where you have I would say, pre-anemic demand, you have an environment as well where you have a reduction of production. So you have, I would say, most of the countries have reduced their production, and the one that increased its production is really Pakistan, even though the crop was expected to be around 10 million barrels. It's probably going to be a little bit smaller than that. So I hear numbers between 8.5 and 10. Some of them tell me, well, we have people in the fields, and I can tell you it's 10 million barrels. I also have, some telling me, well, we have people in the fields and it's 8.5 million barrels. So it's between these two numbers. Probably it's around 9 million barrels overall, but it's a progress versus the previous year. But the previous year was a little bit exceptional in terms of production. In general, the world has produced less cotton, and that's pretty general across the countries. And you can see that in China, which is, I would say, almost a consequence of political decisions to reduce the production or having a different type of support to the Chinese producer. The US is linked to a drought, and its second drought in the year, but we had lower acreage as well coming, and then all the other countries. So in general, what we observe is a reduction of about 9 to 10 million barrels for the countries that are in a reduction, and about an improvement of about probably around 3 million barrels for the ones who are in progress. Mali was in a difficult situation last year, and Côte d'Ivoire had some weather issue the previous year as well. So it's not so much linked to an increase, dramatic increase of planted areas, but much more around the yields and the production. So the world cotton production will be about 112, if I'm not mistaken, 112, which is a 6 million barrels lower than the previous year. And to a certain extent, it's okay to have a smaller crop because we don't have so much of a bigger demand either. So we would be in some sort of an supplied situation, which will be in a more nuanced situation this year. Otherwise, we would have had way too much cotton for what the demand is today. Let's go to the US now. So that's the planted acreage. And as I just said before, compared to the previous year, the planted acreage has been coming down, 13.8 million acres last year with 10.2 million. This is linked to the various competitivity of the different crops, for one thing. And also, I mean, there are some areas that did not get planted in Texas, for example, for a minor part. But in general, I mean, it was just the other competing crops were more competitive. So that's the drought last year versus this year. So last year, the drought was extreme in Texas, and this year, and what we call extreme in Texas this year, the area which is the production for Texas, which is mainly in Lubbock, which is in the upper north, I would say, of the Texas environment, is a little bit less of a drought. Oklahoma is also a little bit less of a drought, but if you go down along the Gulf of Mexico, you can see that it's been pretty hot, and it's also been pretty dry. So the area which is in the south of Louisiana or the south of Mississippi, I mean, has been hurt. It is the second year in a row where you have a climate event. Climate change is obviously being talked over, but these are very, very high temperature, and on top of the fact that it is creating issues on, I would say, just the pure harvest and production, it does create issues in certain areas on the quality as well of the cotton. So the crop index, this is an index, calculated by the USDA based on their, ratings of good, excellence, and so on and so forth. On the US overall, the index that you can see for 2023 is down, and is down versus what the average was and was the previous years were. So it's the lowest crop index you can have had over the past 4 years. If you look specifically in Texas, what you see is that you have conditions which are very similar to what we have in 2011. And personally, I was not doing cotton in 2011, so I cannot remember, but I joined in 2012 and it was extremely volatile. And this year we have a situation in Texas which is similar to 2011, with a yield which is equivalent to what it was in 2011 as well. It's a pretty dramatic situation. Okay, so the production in the US, and these are the numbers which are produced by the USDA. So we had a 14 million bales last year, and we have a 13.1 million bales this year. It could be a touch lower than 13.1. It can be 13, 12.9. It's not going to go much away from this kind of number, but it may be a little bit a touch lower than that. World production, I talked about this one. The world cotton production is coming back, and what we have here, the cotton imports. So I like this one, but that's for a personal reason. What is changing here for a shipper is going from 37 million bales of import exports to 43, probably 44 million bales. And what we have is actually, we show that China is going to import, way more. 6.2 is an extremely small number, which was the number last year that China imported. And we have a number in 2023 of 10 million bales, which may be on the high side or which may be on the low side, really depending on what the restocking program of the Chinese government is going to be. And this one is up to everybody to guess what it could be. But for now, there's a 10 million bales import into China coming from the rest of the world, which is a 4 million bales or 3.8 million bales increase versus the previous year. And this is the bulk of the increase of the import exports around the world. Bangladesh is going to import a little bit more, and the rest is about unchanged. But obviously, if the demand remains anemic, you will be in an environment where the 43 or 44 million bales this year is going to be a little bit smaller. So once again, we have this increase, for which I would say 60% of that is from China. And this one is a question mark. If they don't import 10 but 9 million bales, obviously, that will have an impact on the market. And it's a little bit difficult to predict and have any forecasts on what the number is going to be. On the exports, the US is going to export less. Brazil has a pretty good crop this year, close to 15 million bales, and therefore they're going to export more. It's still a number which is smaller than the US exports, because it's going to be 11.8 versus the 12, 12.5 or 12.3 here on the numbers for the US, but it's getting very close. And we will talk a little bit more about that. Australia will be a little bit smaller, but still is very close to the 6 million bales. And West Africa is recovering somewhat. And there's about 4 to 5 million bales more, 800,000 bales more compared to the previous year. So in total, we have the 6.8, for which the bulk is from Brazil. So what we have said is that on the import, the increase of import would be in China, question mark, and the increase of exports would be coming from Brazil. This one is an interesting one. It's the sum of Brazil plus Australia, which is the light bar, compared to what the US exports is. And what you see is up to last year, I would say up to 2021, the US was absolutely dominating the exports environment. And you can add Brazil plus Australia, it was still smaller than the US. Last year, it became equivalent, and we had a pretty good crop in Australia. This year, it becomes just over it, and you can argue that all the Australian exports plus more, actually, it's all the Australian production and more than that is just going on top of the US exports. So we have a different, I would say, dynamic going on in the market, whereby US used to be driving the pricing environment of the world. And the US, because it was the largest exporter of the world, was setting the tone. It's a little bit different, and it's going to be a little bit different in the future, whereby Brazil is way more likely to set the tone. And it is likely to set the tone, especially in an environment where the price is pretty low. If the price is pretty high, let's say over 90 cents, maybe there will be some, I would say, decent competition between the US and Brazil. But when the prices are coming down, Brazil is more competitive and will definitely set the tone. So we currently are in an environment which is about 87 cents, 88 cents for the nearby. And you can see that the US is, standing at levels which are around 1,300 on, 1,200 on, depending on what you want for high grade long staple of straight milling enchaîné from Brazil is at around 900 on, probably 1,000 on, 900 on. So you have these difference of